Consumer Reports just dropped a list that has Ford owners doing a double take because 7 popular Ford vehicles are now being called out for shockingly high repair costs. And if you drive one of these, you'll want to hear this closely. This isn't about small fixes or routine maintenance. This is about long-term ownership pain that hits your wallet when the warranty fades and reality kicks in. First up is the Ford Explorer, a family favorite that looks tough and capable. But Consumer Reports points to expensive transmission repairs, electrical gremlins, and suspension issues that can turn a reliable road trip SUV into a money pit faster than you'd expect. Owners report repair bills that climb quickly once mileage stacks up, especially on newer tech-heavy trims. Then there's the Hufford F-150, wow, America's best-selling truck, and yes, even legends aren't immune. Consumer Reports highlights costly engine and transmission repairs, especially on turbocharged EcoBoost models, where performance is great, but repair bills can be brutal when things go wrong. This is the kind of truck people buy to save money long term, only to be shocked when one repair rivals a small vacation. The Ford Escape and also made the list, and this one stings because it's marketed as affordable and efficient. Consumer Reports flags transmission problems, cooling system failures, and electronic issues that show up earlier than expected. For a compact SUV, owners aren't expecting 4-figure repair bills, yet that's exactly what many are seeing. Next is the Ford Edge, a midsize SUV that promises comfort and smooth driving, but Consumer Reports data shows expensive drivetrain repairs and persistent electrical issues that push long-term ownership costs higher than rivals. It's the kind of vehicle that feels solid at first, then quietly drains your bank account over time. The Ford Expedition also raised eyebrows because while it's big, powerful, and luxurious, Consumer Reports points out that big size comes with big repair costs. Suspension problems, transmission repairs, and complex electronics can turn this family hauler into a financial heavyweight you didn't plan for. Then there's the Ford Focus Cow, a car that has been under repair cost scrutiny for years. Consumer Reports continues to highlight transmission failures, especially in models equipped with the dual clutch system, leading to repeated repairs and frustrated owners who feel stuck with a car that never quite gets fixed. And finally, the Ford Fiesta, small, sporty, and affordable up front, but Consumer Reports warns that long-term repair costs can completely erase that low purchase price. Transmission issues, clutch problems, and reliability concerns make this one of those cars that feels fun at first, then slowly becomes a headache you can't ignore. What makes this list especially alarming is that these aren't rare or obscure models. These are everyday Fords parked in driveways all across the country, and Consumer Reports is essentially saying that if you plan to keep these vehicles past the warranty period, you need to be financially prepared because the repair bills don't just show up once. They tend to keep coming, especially as mileage increases and technology ages. And this raises a serious question for current owners and buyers alike, because if these costs continue to rise, the real price of owning these vehicles may be far higher than most people ever expected, especially when you start comparing them to competitors that offer similar features with lower long-term repair risks. And that's where things start to get really interesting, because when you line these Ford models up against rival brands, the gap in ownership costs becomes harder to ignore, particularly when Consumer Reports data suggests that some alternatives deliver the same performance and comfort without the same level of financial stress, which leads directly into the next part of this discussion, where we break down what owners can do right now to protect themselves and which vehicles might actually make more sense before your next car decision even begins. Because once you see the numbers behind these repairs, it completely changes how you look at buying your next vehicle, and why ignoring long-term reliability could be one of the most expensive mistakes drivers keep making, especially when the warning signs are already right in front of us. And that's exactly what we're about to dive into next. Now, here's the part most buyers don't think about until it's too late, because these repair costs don't usually hit all at once. They sneak up slowly, starting with warning lights, strange noises, and minor issues that turn into major bills once the vehicle crosses that 60,000 to 80,000 mile mark. And Consumer Reports data shows that this is exactly where many of these Ford models begin to show their weakest points. Take the Ford Explorer, again for example, where owners often report that one repair leads to another, especially when it comes to electronic systems and drivetrain components that are deeply interconnected, meaning a single failure can trigger multiple fixes, multiplying the cost before you even leave the repair shop. The frustration isn't just the money, it's the downtime, the repeat visits, and the feeling that the problem is never truly resolved. With the Ford F-150 Blast, the shock comes from expectations versus reality, because people assume a full-size truck is built to last. But Consumer Reports notes that modern complexity, turbocharging, and advanced transmissions have made repairs far more expensive than older generations. When something fails, it's not a quick fix anymore. It's specialized labor, premium parts, and long wait times that leave owners questioning whether best selling still means best value. The Ford Escape Bus continues to surprise owners in the worst way because its compact size suggests simplicity, but under the hood it tells a different story. Consumer Reports highlights how transmission and cooling system failures can appear earlier than expected, forcing owners to choose between expensive repairs or trading the vehicle at a loss, a decision no one wants to make. Then there's the Ford Edge, which often flies under the radar until repair bills arrive. Consumer Reports data shows that electrical issues in this model can be particularly stubborn, causing features to fail intermittently, making diagnostics difficult and repairs costly. These are the kinds of problems that don't show up on a test drive, but can haunt owners for years. For Ford Expedition, owners, the issue is scale, because everything is bigger, heavier, and more complex, and Consumer Reports points out that when suspension or transmission problems arise, the cost skyrockets. This isn't just about luxury level pricing, it's about repair bills that can rival used car prices if multiple systems fail at once. Thus, Ford Focus remains one of the most talked about cautionary tales, and Consumer Reports continues to reinforce why. Transmission problems aren't just common, they're persistent, and many owners report repeated repairs that never fully solve the issue. It's the kind of ownership experience that drains patience as fast as it drains your bank account, and the Ford Fiesta, despite its low entry price, often delivers the biggest long-term disappointment. Consumer Reports warns that repeated transmission and clutch issues can turn this budget-friendly car into an ongoing expense, leaving owners wondering how something so small can cost so much to keep running. What really makes this list powerful is what it tells us about modern car ownership, because these vehicles aren't failing due to neglect. Many are failing despite regular maintenance, which means buyers can do everything right and still face massive repair costs. Consumer Reports isn't saying these vehicles are unusable, but they are sending a clear warning that long-term reliability and repair costs matter far more than flashy features or short-term deals, especially when you're planning to keep a vehicle for years. And once you start factoring in extended warranties, depreciation, and repeated repairs, the total cost of ownership begins to look very different than what was promised at the dealership. And that's where this conversation gets even more important, because understanding these patterns can save thousands of dollars if you know what to look for before making your next move. And that's exactly what we're about to break down next. Now let's talk about what this actually means for real drivers, because Consumer Reports isn't just throwing out scary numbers, they're revealing patterns that show up year after year. And these patterns tell a story about which vehicles quietly become expensive liabilities once the honeymoon phase is over. This is the stage where many owners realize that monthly payments were only part of the cost, and the real expense shows up later in the repair bay. One of the biggest red flags across these 7 Ford models is how technology-heavy systems age over time. Consumer Reports notes that advanced infotainment, driver assist features, and electronic modules are often tied into critical vehicle functions, meaning when something glitches, it's rarely isolated. On vehicles like the Ford Explorer and Ford Edge, a simple electronic fault can cascade into multiple system failures, driving up both labor time and parts costs in ways most owners never anticipated. The Ford F-150 Titan highlights another growing issue, which is powertrain complexity. Turbocharged engines and multi-speed transmissions deliver great performance and fuel efficiency, but Consumer Reports data shows that when these systems fail, repairs aren't just expensive, they're specialized. Not every shop can fix them properly, which limits options and pushes owners toward higher dealership repair prices. With the Ford Escape, Consumer Reports points to a problem many compact SUV owners don't expect, and that's premature unsure where. Components that should last well beyond 100,000 miles often show signs of failure much earlier, forcing owners to spend money sooner than planned. That early timing makes these repairs feel especially painful because the vehicle still feels relatively new. The Ford Expedition stands out for a different reason, and that's cumulative cost. Consumer Reports shows that while some repairs may not be frequent, when they do happen, they hit hard. Large suspension components, heavy-duty transmissions, and complex electronics combine to create repair bills that stack up quickly, especially as mileage climbs. For the Ford Focus and Ford Fiesta, the story is about repeat visits. Consumer Reports highlights how transmission-related problems can come back even after repairs, leaving owners stuck in a cycle of fixes that never fully resolve the issue. It's not just about the money, it's about the constant uncertainty of wondering when the next problem will appear. What really changes the conversation is when you compare these Ford models to competitors in the same segments. Consumer Reports data suggests that some rival vehicles offer similar performance, safety, and comfort with significantly lower long-term repair costs. That comparison forces buyers to rethink brand loyalty and ask whether familiarity is worth the financial risk. And here's the critical takeaway so far, because this list isn't meant to scare people away from Ford entirely. It's meant to highlight the importance of informed buying decisions. Consumer Reports is essentially saying that knowing which models carry higher repair risks gives you power. Power to negotiate better prices, power to choose extended warranties wisely, and power to walk away when the numbers don't add up, because once you understand how these costs accumulate over time, you start to see vehicle ownership in a completely different light, and that realization leads directly into the next part of this discussion, where we break down the smartest moves current owners and future buyers can make right now to avoid becoming another statistic in these Consumer Reports findings, because the difference between a smart purchase and a financial headache often comes down to what you know before you sign anything, and that's exactly what we're about to get into next. Now let's get practical, because once you know these risks exist, the worst move is to ignore them and hope for the best. Consumer Reports makes it clear that owners of these 7 Ford vehicles can still protect themselves, but only if they act early and strategically before repair costs spiral out of control. If you own a Ford Explorer, the smartest move is proactive diagnostics. Consumer Reports data suggests catching electronic and drivetrain issues early can prevent cascading failures that multiply repair bills. Ignoring small warning signs on this vehicle is where costs explode, because one unresolved issue often triggers several more. For a Ford F-150 owners, maintenance timing matters more than most people realize. Consumer Reports points out that delaying service on turbocharged engines and complex transmissions dramatically increases the chance of catastrophic failure. Staying ahead of fluid changes and software updates isn't optional. It's essential if you want to avoid 5-figure repair nightmares. With the Ford Escape, the key is monitoring performance changes closely. Consumer Reports highlights that early symptoms like rough shifting or overheating are often the first clues of larger problems. Acting quickly can be the difference between a manageable repair and a decision to trade the vehicle at a loss. The Ford Edge requires a different mindset, because electrical problems can be deceptive. Consumer Reports warns that intermittent glitches often get dismissed, but those same glitches can signal deeper system failures. Documenting issues and pushing for proper diagnostics early can save thousands later. We're in Ford Expedition. Owners, budgeting is part of survival. Consumer Reports data shows that even well-maintained Expeditions can face high repair costs simply due to size and complexity. Planning for those expenses ahead of time can prevent financial shock when a major component eventually fails. The Ford Focus and Ford Fiesta demand the most caution of all. Consumer Reports continues to emphasize that transmission issues in these models are not rare anomalies, they are well-documented patterns. Owners who plan to keep these vehicles long-term should seriously evaluate extended warranty coverage or consider exiting ownership before repairs begin stacking up. What's especially important here is that Consumer Reports isn't saying every single one of these vehicles will fail, but they are saying the odds are higher than average, and when problems do happen, they tend to be expensive. That probability reliability is what smart buyers and owners must factor into every decision, from purchase price to ownership length. And this brings us to a bigger conversation about how people choose vehicles in the first place, because flashy design, strong marketing, and brand reputation often overshadow long-term reliability data. Consumer Reports is reminding consumers that real value isn't just how a car feels on day one, it's how it behaves year after year, repair after repair, mile after mile. And once you start looking at vehicles through that lens, it becomes impossible to ignore how much long-term data matters, which sets the stage for the next part of this breakdown, where we compare ownership strategies, resale timing, and why knowing when to walk away can sometimes be the smartest financial move you'll ever make. Now let's zoom out, because Consumer Reports isn't just warning about repairs, they're quietly exposing how ownership strategy can make or break your finances. The same vehicle can be a smart buy or a financial disaster depending on how long you keep it, how you maintain it, and when you decide to move on, and this is especially true for these 7 Ford models. For vehicles like the Ford Explorer and Ford Edge, Consumer Reports data suggests that ownership beyond the warranty period is where risk increases sharply. Many of the most expensive failures happen after coverage expires, which means owners who plan to keep these SUVs long-term need to factor in extended protection or an exit plan before major systems age out. The Ford F-150EU introduces another important point: resale timing. Consumer Reports highlights that trucks tend to hold value well early on, but once high mileage repair concerns become visible, resale value can drop fast. Selling or trading before major powertrain repairs are due can save owners from absorbing the full cost of those failures. With the Medford Escape one, depreciation and repairs collide in a dangerous way. Consumer Reports notes that when repair costs start rising, vehicle value often drops at the same time, trapping owners in a situation where fixing the car doesn't make financial sense, but selling it means taking a loss. Recognizing that tipping point early is critical. The Ford Expedition emphasizes why large vehicles demand long-term planning. Consumer Reports data shows that while these SUVs can be excellent family haulers, they also require a realistic budget for future repairs. Owners who underestimate that reality often feel blindsided when a single repair rivals several months of payments. For the Ford Focus and Ford Fiesta, the strategy becomes even more urgent. Consumer Reports repeatedly shows that transmission-related problems can wipe out resale value quickly. Owners who wait too long often find themselves stuck with vehicles that are costly to fix and difficult to sell, a worst-case scenario in car ownership. What ties all of this together is awareness, because Consumer Reports is essentially handing consumers a roadmap. This data allows buyers to plan ahead instead of reacting after the damage is done. Knowing which vehicles carry higher repair risks lets you decide whether to buy used, lease instead of own, or walk away entirely. And here's where things get even more revealing, because once you start comparing these Ford models to alternatives in the same price range, Consumer Reports shows that some competitors offer similar features with lower long-term repair exposure. That comparison challenges long-held assumptions about brand loyalty and forces a hard question: is familiarity worth the extra cost over time? Consumer Reports repair cost data gives you a reason to push back on pricing, especially for used models. If a salesperson is asking top dollar for a Ford Explorer with higher mileage, pointing out known transmission and electronic repair risks can justify a lower offer or added protections. This isn't speculation, it's documented ownership data. With the Ford F-150 negotiations become about future risk, not just current condition. Consumer Reports shows that while these trucks perform well early on, expensive repairs can surface later. That knowledge allows buyers to negotiate extended warranties, maintenance packages, or significant price reductions to offset that risk. For compact vehicles like the Ford Escape and Ford Fiesta, Consumer Reports data can completely change the deal. Buyers who know about common transmission and cooling issues can avoid overpaying for models that may soon require costly repairs. In many cases, the smartest move isn't negotiating harder, it's walking away entirely. The Ford Expedition requires a different approach, because price alone isn't the issue. Consumer Reports highlights that long-term costs are the real concern. Buyers should factor in repair repair history, service records, and warranty coverage before committing, because owning this SUV without a financial buffer can quickly become overwhelming. For the Ford Focus, and Consumer Reports findings should be treated as a warning label. Transmission problems are so well documented that buyers should either secure strong warranty protection or seriously consider alternatives. Paying less upfront doesn't help if repair costs erase those savings later. What makes this information so valuable is how it changes buyer behavior. Consumer Reports data empowers consumers to ask better questions, demand transparency, and avoid emotional decisions. It's no longer just about how a car looks or feels, it's about how it behaves when things go wrong. For Ford Explorer owners, Consumer Reports trends suggest closely tracking repair frequency and cost over time. When visits to the shop start happening more often, that's usually the signal that larger failures may be coming. At that point, continuing to invest money can quickly become a losing battle, and planning an exit before major drivetrain or electrical repairs hit can protect your finances. For F-150 owners face a more strategic choice. Consumer Reports shows these trucks often make sense to keep while they're running strong, but once high-dollar repairs start stacking up, resale value can drop fast. Selling before a major engine or transmission repair is often the smarter move, even if the truck still drives fine. If you're driving a Ford Escape, and Consumer Reports data points to a common crossroads. When repair estimates begin approaching the vehicle's market value, that's a clear warning sign. Many owners fall into the trap of fixing just one more thing, only to face another failure shortly after. Knowing when to stop is critical. The Ford Edge presents a different challenge because electrical problems can be unpredictable. Consumer Reports suggests that repeated electronic issues are rarely isolated events. Once patterns form, repair costs tend to increase rather than stabilize, making long-term ownership riskier than it initially appears. For Ford Expedition owners, Consumer Reports emphasizes financial preparedness. This SUV can be rewarding, but it demands a long-term budget that accounts for expensive repairs. When that budget no longer makes sense, moving on sooner rather than later can prevent major financial strain. The Ford Focus and Ford Fiesta are often the hardest decisions. Consumer Reports data shows that many owners hold on hoping problems will stop, but transmission issues frequently persist. When reliability doesn't improve after multiple repairs, cutting losses can be the smartest option. The bigger lesson here is that Consumer Reports is exposing how emotion can cost people thousands. Owners remember the good experiences and overlook the warning signs, but the data doesn't lie. Patterns matter more than individual stories. What makes this list so powerful is how it reshapes expectations. These vehicles aren't disasters across the board, but they demand awareness, planning, and realistic financial decisions. Consumer Reports isn't saying never buy Ford. They're saying buy smart, buy informed, and never ignore long-term repair trends. As we step back and look at the full picture, one thing becomes clear. The true cost of a vehicle isn't the sticker price. It's the years that follow. Repair bills, downtime, stress, and resale value all add up. And Consumer Reports is reminding drivers that ignoring this reality is one of the most expensive mistakes a car owner can make, especially when the warning signs are already documented and available for anyone willing to look closely at the data and make decisions based on facts instead of promises.